before we start sewing on this month's project, I want to talk a little bit about accuracy. Last month, we were overcut. We were making our blocks bigger than they needed to be and trimming them down so they came out exactly. So it was a little less critical that your 1/4 inch seam be exactly right. So I just want to talk about some things that can make getting that 1/4 inch a little bit easier. First off, a 1/4 inch foot can be a huge help. This particular foot has the markings on it, and it has a blade that runs along the side that runs right along the edge of your fabric to help keep that 1/4 inch consistent. Another thing that is helpful is a single needle throat plate. If you look at this one, you will see that it does not have a cutout or zigzags like this one that usually comes standard with your sewing machine. Rather, there is just one little hole right here where the needle goes up and down. This will keep your line straighter, and it will also help to keep from fabric pulling down into the feed dogs when you're stitching. Another tool that can be helpful when you're piecing small pieces is a stiletto. That way you can hold on to it just all the way up until the fabric goes under the needle. In the store, we do have porcupine quills that make a great stiletto because if you hit them with your needle, you're not going to knock the machine out of time. Now, even if you have a 1/4 inch foot, you still need to test to make sure you're getting an accurate 1/4 inch seam. And to do that, I have cut 3 1.5 inch strip pieces of fabric, and I'm going to stitch them together with what I think is a 1/4 inch seam on the sewing machine. Now, even if you find your 1/4 inch exactly one time when you're sewing, you may need to check again, because if you change thread weights, that can affect your 1/4 inch seam. So let me go to the sewing machine and I'll be right back. This is the default screen that comes up when the machine is turned on, and right now the sewing machine is just set with the needle in the center position and it's ready to sew a straight stitch. However, I can set it up for a 1/4 inch foot, and to do that I go to the stitch menu, and I want to go to the second menu, and it's stitch number 1, which you can see in the lid of the machine, and OK. And I'm now set up for the 1/4 inch seam. It is telling me I should use a size 80 needle, foot A, and that's what's on the machine. I can move my needle either right or left if I want to, and I can change my stitch length right here. So let's go ahead and sew. I have a piece of fabric that I've already run under the needle. This is just a scrap, and that just keeps the fabric feeding through without pulling one side to the other. I am running my fabric right along the A foot. I have 2 pieces together here. Get to the end, and I can cut my threads with the machine. Presser foot. And then again, I can just sew off my scrap piece of fabric. And I take my third 1.5 inch strip, twine it up, and again, right along the right side of the foot. Cut my fabric and my thread. At this point, I have only finger pressed my seams. But I put a ruler down, and my center, since these were 1.5 inch strips, should measure exactly 1 inch. If you will notice, right here, I have a little bit of a gap. It's a little bit more than 1 inch. So on this sewing machine, because I can change my needle position, I can adjust that over and try again for my exact 1/4 inch. Now, if my centerpiece is more than 1 inch, then that means I need a wider seam allowance. So I would move my needle to the left. If my centerpiece was less than an inch, I would need a narrower seam allowance, so I would move my needle to the right. So I'm going to just move it to the left, one spot, and then we'll test it again. Okay, I stitched again off camera because there's really no reason for you to watch me sew strips together. But this time when I measure, I'm exactly on 1 inch. So I know that's the setting on this machine for that foot and that particular thread. If you're using a 1/4 inch foot, you can't always count on that being exactly a 1/4 of an inch either. You need to check it for every machine. Now the 1/4 of an inch foot, you're not going to have a lot of room to move your needle back and forth. You can usually get one position at least either way, so that's an option. So what if your machine is older and you can't move the needle position? You can still mark where your accurate 1/4 inch is. There are these really nice guides. They stick to the bed of the machine with static. They're reusable, and you can cut them to whatever length you want. I put this one on the machine. I didn't cut it down because I'm not planning to leave it there. I know where my 1/4 inch is. But that's an option if you can't move your needle, or if you don't have a 1/4 inch presser foot, you have an older machine that doesn't have a presser foot that you can get it to line up right. In your kit this month, there are 56 2.5 inch squares. But you don't need 2.5 inch squares, you need 1.5 inch squares. So I did talk last month about using smaller rulers for smaller squares. It's just easier to keep control. Again, I'm using a Creative Grids ruler. This one today is 3.5 inches square. And remember, you need to make sure you're cutting from the right side. My 1/2 inch is over here. On the Creative Grids rulers, whatever numbers are towards you are the numbers you're cutting. So if I flipped it around, then my 1, 2, and 3 are right side up. So there's no reason to cut 56 squares individually. You can stack them up however many you're comfortable with. I have a stack of 4 there. And just like last month, I'm going to square up 2 sides. And I have a little tiny mat here, so I can just twirl it around. And I want to find my 1.5 mark on the ruler and line it up with my 2 previously cut sides. And cut. So there's my 1.5 inch squares. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of the 52 squares off camera. And the reason for you to watch me do that, you're going to get to do it yourself. I mentioned I was using the Creative Grids ruler, and I just want to point out that the Creative Grids rulers have little grips on the bottom. If you're not using a ruler that has grips on the bottom, you might want to consider getting some True Grips. They are little silicone circles that you can peel off and put on the back of your ruler that help keep it from slipping. Don't just use the circles. You paid for the whole sheet, so use all your little pieces because it all works as a non-slip surface. All my 1.5 inch squares are cut, and this is how they're going to be arranged. You are welcome to do them random. There is no right or wrong order. First, I have a strip that is 1 square high by 16 long. Then I have one set that is 2 high by 4 long. And then there are 2 sets that are 2 high by 8 long. That will use all 56 squares. So let me go back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to start chain piecing. I'm going to start by sewing these together in pairs, and I have my sew-off piece of fabric right here already. And just pair them together, right sides together. Grab my next set. And just feed them together. And when I get to the ones that are too high, I will do those. The ones that are on the top and the bottom, I will pair them that way. This is when you might want the stiletto. And it's kind of hard to use when you have your arms wrapped around a tripod and a camera. So you're not seeing me do that right now. And just keep going until you have all your pairs sewn together, and then I will come back and show you what I do next. Okay, here's all my pieces chained together, and I've left them attached. The row that is only one high, all the seam allowances are going to go the same direction. Rows that are too high, we want the seam allowances going the opposite directions, and that's why I have flipped them so that I'm reminded I want one to go one way and one to go the other way. I find that for me, when I'm pressing my pieces, it works better if I finger press as I go along and then save the pressing with the iron until the latest step possible. So to finger press the 1x16 strip, each seam goes the same way, so you can just tip it up and rub your finger over it, even your fingernail if you want to. There are little wooden tools that you can use as well, wooden irons. So just the whole row. Now for the others that are too high, one seam needs to go up and one seam needs to go down so that they will nest when you're finished. In fact, you don't even have to cut the chain. So if you flip it over this way, then the two seams nest right together, and I don't use pins when I'm sewing. So I would go ahead and sew that. Okay, on the strip that is only one high, I am now sewing the groups of 2 into groups of 4, but those are end to end. And the groups that are too high, I'm sewing them into groups of 4, but I'm making them into a 4 patch. And the seams should nest right here as you go through. So I'm going to sew all of those, everything now into groups of 4. 4 patches other than the one strip that is 1x16 long. And then I will come back again. What I want is the 4 patch pieces. On these guys, I want to, where the seams intersect, flip them opposite ways, and it'll pull those couple stitches that are in there. And you get a little 4 patch here in the intersection, and the seams make a pinwheel going around. And then I will press it that way, and it will reduce the bulk here in the center. And once I've done that, then I will just go back and sew the groups of 4 together. On this, it'll be a straight line. This one will be the 2, again here. And then keep going. This will be I'll have to do it twice. And that'll finish up the thing. So I will show it to you once I'm finished. So here's my 1x16 strip sewn together, and I'm ready to start pressing with the iron. So again, it's just an up and down motion. One slide back and forth. And if you want to have a nice crisp finish, you can add some Best Press. We have several different scents in the store, and they come in more than one size. Just spray a little on, and it will make a nice crisp seam, and it will also stabilize your cut edges to some extent so that they don't stretch. And this is my 2 high by 8 long piece. And you'll notice because I split the seams here in the middle, I have the seams going different directions here. I'm just going to press it that way, and the finger pressing will hold it well enough for me to feel it with my fingers and come in and press. And because the seams are going different directions,
and I nested them, I get nice matching intersections. And again, I can spray with a little bit of Best Press. And that will crisp it up and stabilize the fabric for later.